Manufacturers are constantly trying to reduce the weight of bike components, and that includes seat pins. Seat pins are also getting longer. These, along with ever-increasing loading, means that seat pins are becoming much more highly stressed. I've experienced the failure of 3 different seat pins while out riding. It's not an experience I want to repeat. This is the last seat pin that failed on me. It was a very cheap seat pin, so I suppose I've only got myself to blame. However, I have had much more expensive seat pin fail on me. For context, up to about 100 kilos, I'm a rider that's on the larger end of the scale. Obviously, for lighter, small riders, this will be less of a problem. I don't want my new gravel bike seat pin to fail, no surprise there. So in this video, I'll show you what I've done to minimize the likelihood of such a failure. In my last video in this series, I showed that the stresses in the seat pin were much lower than the strength of the carbon fiber material from which the seat pin is made, so failure should be unlikely. However, what I didn't do was look at the stress concentration that's caused just here, where the seat pin enters the frame set. I'll show you some engineering analysis of that in the next video, but for now I'll just look at the solution in terms of the engineering principles. This is the seat pin clamp that came with the frame set. It's fairly typical. The big issue with these is that the only thing that's stopping the seat pin sliding into the frame set is friction. I can and will use a carbon fiber assembly paste to increase friction. However, if that's not enough, the only real solution here is to tighten that clamp further. This causes a crushing effect and local stress concentrations which can degrade the carbon fiber. Indeed, the expensive seat pin that I had failed because I had over-tightened the clamp, which caused the carbon fiber to degrade, and eventually the seat pin broke due to a buckling failure. Obviously, I want to avoid that happening again. One option is to put a second clamp around the seat pin. This distributes the friction forces, and so the clamping screws don't need to be tightened up as much. Although it improves the stresses due to the crushing of the seat pin, it doesn't do much for the stress concentration. A way around that is to get a double seat clamp that looks like this. Effectively, it's 2 clamps in one, so the clamping and frictional forces can be spread out, resulting in lower stresses. However, because they're joined together, there's an additional load path which will reduce or eliminate the stress concentration at the top of the seat tube. There are many brands available, but I bought this XLC clamp. Most of these clamps have a slot-like feature at the top here. This will introduce extra flexibility in the clamp, giving more compliance and therefore lowering the stresses further in the seat pin. And here is the clamp fitted to the bike. In theory, this clamp should lower the stresses in the seat pin and therefore make it more reliable. For a bit of engineering fun, I decided to try and quantify the benefit, so I produced computer-based models of the 2 different clamps. In my next video, I'll show you those models and the results. If you don't want to miss this exciting content, please subscribe. Also, please share any comments that you have about interesting seat pin experiences that you might have had. Engineering and fun. Only an engineer could put those words together.